Episode 8 is brought to you by the following Big Dog tier members: Emily Garrison, Aiden William, Amanda Elliott, Brandy Garniger, Amanda Spriggs, Tasha Wheeler, and Jamie Hollis Zimmerman. Are you looking to be more involved in the Dog Pound community? If so, please visit patreon.com/dogwithabone. For just $1 a month, you can help support Dog with a Bone's mission. Please visit our page to learn about the multiple tiers that will give you access to behind-the-scenes content, outtakes, documents, photos, videos, and live monthly events with me. I thank you for your continued support and consideration. Warning: this episode contains adult content and listener discretion is advised. All views and opinions expressed by Dog with a Bone guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the host or the contributors. Everyone, and welcome back to Dog with a Bone. If you have not already, please join our Dog with a Bone discussion Facebook page, where you can meet other listeners and discuss the episodes as we move through the season. There will be a ton to talk about. Also, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to Dog with a Bone on Spotify or wherever you listen, so you get notified when episodes are released. In episode 7, you heard from Donald regarding the custody battle that resulted in him being awarded custody of all 3 of the kids. We also heard firsthand accounts of the abuse and neglect that was happening in the home to Mackenzie, Harrison, Douglas, and Jennifer. I do want to point out that the child who seemed to get the brunt of the abuse from Kenny was Mackenzie. There were so many red flags in what Harrison and Douglas had shared with me that I wondered if Kenny had a past history of abusing other children. This is not going to be a surprise to anyone, but it turns out Kenny does have a pretty elaborate past that involves multiple child abuse incidents and DUIs. I was contacted a few months back by a guy named Dustin. Dustin was a child when his mom had started dating Kenny. Dustin reached out because he wanted to tell his side of the story of what he experienced at the hands of Kenny in the hope of helping Mackenzie's case. He begins telling me about how his mom and Kenny met at work, and then things started to move fast between them. And did they live together?
Not at first, but it did not take long for him to start staying there.
You're between your mom and your dad?
Yes.
What was it about Kenny being an 8-year-old? What was he like?
So he was kind of a loud person. He smoked, he drank, and my dad was against all of that stuff. My mom and dad was really strict on me. They just wanted me to be a good person, but as a child, I knew smoking and drinking is wrong. So that I didn't like. My dad didn't like me being around people that drank either. So he was loud and just cocky and arrogant, and I could see my mom is starting to change. I think what it was Kenny is starting to pull the wool over her eyes. What he was doing was he was promising her this, promising her that, just making all these promises and saying he was going to give her such a good life and they was going to do all this and all that. And my mom's like, great, I want this. He kind of can't blame my mom. She didn't know what she was getting into. So from the very beginning, I could see manipulations. He was really trying to turn my mom against my dad, and that wasn't the case before. He was just taking over.
Do you feel like he was trying to do like the isolation, domestic violence? I'm going to cut off all the people in your life.
That would come, I would say.
Yeah.
He was always about putting a show on.
Tell me about his behavior towards you. Was he abusive towards you?
Not really at the beginning. Like I said, he was cocky, he was arrogant, he was real mouthy. He was always had something against my dad. My dad ain't never said nothing to him yet. And then, like I said, he's starting to take over. He's moved in. He's trying all these things, change up the house, take over everything. I am now starting to rebel against him. I'm starting to want to be around my dad more. And then when I did come, so here's like the very first thing that I remember big that he did to me. So I loved wrestling as a kid. I loved wrestling with my dad. I was very fun, and I was a kid. I was always wanting to play and romp around, and I always wanted to be like my dad, so I was always trying to be like one of the guys. And he would start wrestling with me, and just right off the bat, my dad would he wouldn't use very much force against me, so it'd be like I was winning. Well, this wasn't the case with Kenny. I was getting hurt. And the longer it went, the more I was getting hurt. And he ended up getting me in a chokehold and was like not locking it in as tight as you would a grown man, but way too tight for a kid. And I'm hollering for Mom because now I'm scared. I can't get out. And Mom comes in. He lightens it up. He's like, I was just trying to play with him. And Mom's like, he's just trying to connect with you. He's just trying to play with you. Knock it off. He's not trying to hurt you.
Again, here we go. Kenny's just, quote, playing with him. It sounds familiar, right? Because remember, he hung kids up by their pant loops for hours on a hook. And, according to him, he's just connecting and playing with them. I must have missed out on that game growing up.
And then as soon as she walked right back out of the room, right back in it was. Like he just grabbed me and yanked real hard. I remember that. And I was as loud as I could be, and he let go. And I ran to my room, and that was it for the night. I was staying away. I stayed in my room as long as I could.
Did you feel like when you were wrestling with him that he was trying to actually hurt you?
Not at first. I thought he was cool and play with me. But as soon as let's say this took 3 minutes. I don't know how long it took, but if it took 3 to 5 minutes, this whole thing maybe took. Within the first minute to 2 minutes, I realized something isn't right. Like I said, my dad wouldn't hurt me. He might play rough with me, but he wouldn't really hurt me. Now I'm wrestling with Kenny, and I'm hurt. I'm starting to struggle. And it really felt like I had a fight on my hands. And then when he locked it in, I started hollering for Mom the first time. I was scared. I was hurting. And I thought he was going to get me right then and there. I didn't know what was going on or what went wrong, why it turned real quick.
Do you think that he was going to choke you out? He's going to choke you to death?
100%. That's why I started hollering for my mom.
You feared for your life at that moment?
Yep.
And how old were you?
I'm still probably like 8 years old. This is just within like maybe the first 3 months or something like that.
So then your mom comes in and he is probably playing this, I'm just trying to connect with the boy. I'm just playing. I'm just wrestling. Your mom is kind of under the spell of domestic violence. And so she says, oh, look at that. He's just playing, and walks away. And he kind of wins in that instance.
He was putting a spell on her. He was starting to work his magic to what was later coming. It was like he was hypnotizing my mom. He promised her this big life and all this and that. And I know without a doubt my mom at that time did not know he was hurting me.
That's actually part of that whole violence thing, is he's manipulating. He's controlling the situations. He's emotionally abusing. He's playing a game.
Yeah.
Were there other instances? Did it increase from that point on?
Oh, yeah. It grew, and it grew. This ain't a really big deal, but here's how he would do all these little tricks and stuff. And like I said, this one ain't a big deal, but it kind of gives you a little clue. I had just come home and they had bought me a DVD player. My mom bought it for me. He was hooking it up for me, and he put this little remote holder on my side of my bed. And he said, now, whenever you leave to go to your dad's, this remote has to be in this holder or I'm taking it away. I said, okay. He says, you want to go out in the garage and do something? He wanted me to go outside, wanted me to go out in the garage to get something or whatever. I don't remember, but it was just not even a minute after he hooked the DVD player up. And I said, okay. And I remember running outside and I did whatever. And as I come back in, he's like, I told you as soon as you leave, this remote's not in the holder. I'm going to take it away. And he unhooked my DVD player and took it away. Now, what he originally said was, when you leave to go to your dad's, I didn't leave to go to my dad's. I left to go out in the garage. So I didn't put the remote back in the holder. I put it right beside on my little table thing that he hooked the holder onto. That's just an example of these tricks that he would do. So that was a setup from the very beginning. He knew what he was going to do, and it worked. He knew what I was going to do. So we're maybe later into a year, and the next thing I can remember is I did something wrong. I know I made my mom mad. I'm assuming it probably maybe dealt with my dad some way, somehow. And I got in trouble, and I got whipped. Well, I got marks left on me. And that's the first time that had ever happened. I've been whipped before, but I never had marks. And the next day in school, I had bruises and stuff. And I can't remember if my dad seen it that night. I think I told him that I got whipped. And he looked and he's like, man, that's bad. And I said, yeah. And he said, what'd you do? I probably told him. I can't remember. And he seen it. He knew it was bad. And the next day I had to go to school. And I remember my teacher going by and lifting the back of my shirt up, which I thought that was kind of weird. And she says, we need to go to the office. And I don't get in trouble. So me going to the office, I'm like, this is weird. What's going on? And why she lift my shirt up? I was trying to hide this. I didn't want nobody to know. Well, I think what happened was my dad had called Children's Services or called the school to see what he needed to do. And maybe the principal told the teacher to look at me or something. I don't know exactly how that happened, but she did it. And if she wouldn't have lifted my shirt, there was no way that she would have seen anything. The principal asked to see. And so I think my dad was there within minutes, and the cops was there and everything. And they took pictures, and I was embarrassed because I had pulled down my pants. I had to let them take pictures of me. I remember Kenny saying, you don't punish him hard enough. You just let him run all over you and do anything he wants. And I'm just a kid. I'm a good kid. I get good grades. I don't act out. I truly was a good kid. Now, maybe was I upset with my mom and dad for divorcing, but I never did anything crazy. I was not a bad kid. You could ask anybody. I was polite. I had manners. I was a good kid. So I remember him saying that, and I think that's what led up to getting whipped real hard and everything.
Was it Kenny who did the beating?
I can't remember who whipped me. I can't remember that part. If I remember right, I'm thinking Mom did it, but Kenny was right there watching, telling that wasn't hard enough. That's how I think I remember that going down.
Like he was saying, you have to do it harder.
Right, yes. And my mom never whipped me hard or nothing. Don't get me wrong, my mom whipped my butt a good time or two, but then not very often. Like I think maybe only 5 times in my entire childhood did I ever get my butt spanked. That tells you how good of a kid I was. So the cops was at the school. They took pictures and everything, and my dad got custody of me. So now I only see my mom Wednesday after school and every other weekend.
There is a clear pattern here. Anytime Kenny was around children, the mom ends up losing custody of their kids because of the abuse that Kenny inflicted on them.
And now, since I'm not at mom's much at all, things is better. But whenever I'm around, he's just worse. He was always trying to tempt me. He would talk shit about my dad because he knows I would go tell my dad. He was always saying he was going to beat my dad up and he was going to do this to me or do this to my dad. Well, finally, I had enough. I didn't want my dad to get in trouble, so a lot of the things that Kenny did, I wouldn't tell my dad, or my mom and Kenny did together, I wouldn't tell my dad because I knew my dad would go fight Kenny because I've seen my dad fight. My dad was not scared to fight. My dad was a mountain man. He was well respected by the police. Everybody knew my dad. My dad had this reputation around town. You could go to him if you needed help with anything. He would settle things his own way if he needed to. So Kenny done something and pushed me too far, and I told my dad. I called my dad, and I told Dad, I said, man, Kenny's being mean to me. And that's the first time Kenny would actually say something where my dad could hear him. He's like, tell your dad, come over here and I'll whoop his ass. That's all it took. Here comes Dad. You could hear that truck fire up from a few houses down and come screaming down the road. He throws it apart. Squealing tires all the way. He comes out and he's revving the engine trying to get Kenny to come out. Kenny wouldn't go outside. At my house at the time, there was an alley. So my dad was parked in the alley. He did not step over the alley. Well, Kenny finally come outside and ran his mouth, but he wouldn't get close to my dad. He wouldn't get close at all. My dad's like, come on, chicken shit, you want to run your mouth? And he's like, I'm out here. You're so big and bad, we'll see how bad you are. And Kenny's running his mouth back. And Kenny's like, come on, step over on this property line. Dad said, I ain't dumb. He said, I know. And he said, my mom's name. He said, I know she's in there ready to call the law on me. He said, I ain't dumb. Come on out here in the alley and we'll take care of this. Well, Kenny wouldn't step out in the alley.
One of the interesting things that I'm hearing from you is very similar to the same stuff he did to Mackenzie in regards to Donald. Talking shit about Donald to Mackenzie and the boys, threatening Donald to the kids, to the point where Mackenzie was afraid to tell Donald things because she knew Donald would go after him. And then he would say, I'll kill your dad, and do all of this. And it's very interesting that he was doing the same thing with you. I mean, he has a pattern.
That's what made me message Donald. I didn't want to message him for the longest time because here's a man that lost his child. He's hurt. I do not want to cross the line to cause him any more hurt. I don't want to upset him in any way, shape, or form. But I wanted to tell him this stuff so maybe there was an empty gap somewhere I could fill in while he was doing his investigation. So I'd finally talked myself into telling him. And Donald said to me, do you know how I know you're telling the truth? He said, because there's stuff I have not said. And he said, you were saying the exact same thing. And I said, well, I'm glad you believe me because this is why I was doing it.
I appreciate you doing that. After that incident, Kenny doing what he normally does is just talk a lot of shit and then throws his weight around. But he likes to pick on people who he thinks he has more power over. So he picks on children. He abuses children. And then he goes after women who he can manipulate and abuse. So at this point, was there any other instances of him being physical with you?
Oh, yeah. So it kind of gets more twisted as it goes. It gets worse. So I'm away from Mom now, and I'm gone, so I don't know what's going on at the house very much at all. I see my mom like maybe 3 or 4 hours on Wednesday, and then every other weekend. But now Kenny, I think, is working at Sugar Creek instead of McKesson. So I think he was gone a little bit more. Well, I come to Mom's one day, and Mom's packing everything up. And I said, why are you packing everything in the house up? And Mom said, well, we bought another house. And I said, where? I said, are you getting rid of this house? Because that was my childhood home. And I didn't want to leave my childhood home. And she said, I'm not getting rid of the house. We just bought another one. I'm going to rent this one out. And so we had moved out to this ranch. Kenny had this bright idea. He was going to be this big-time rancher. So he made Mom go, well, he didn't make it. I mean, Mom did it too. I should say he talked Mom into buying this big ranch, something that my mom couldn't afford on her own, made her buy this big, expensive Ford Power Stroke dually. And my mom is very giving. If she thinks it'll make you happy, she'll give you whatever she's got, or she'll give you anything she can, because that's what makes her happy, seeing other people happy. So Kenny sees this and he's using it to his advantage. So they're going to go start this big ranch. Kenny promises that they're going to make all this money, and Kenny buys him a horse. So he buys this one horse and he puts up this electric fence. And I go away for a few weeks, and the next time I come out there, we're doing whatever. He comes pulling in with the horse trailer, and he tells Mom, he says, come out here and look at this horse that I bought for Dustin. And I heard that, and I'm like, why did he buy me a horse? He don't like me. I'm already suspicious what's going on, but at the same time, I like animals, so I'm kind of excited. I want to go see the horse. So I go out there, and it's this Arabian horse, Black Arabian. And he said, it's trailer broke. It rode over here. It's a trail horse. It rides real good and everything. And he shows it to Mom, and then she went back in the house, and he said, you want to ride it? I said, yeah, I'll ride it. I've never rode a horse before. So I'm trying to get up on this horse, and this horse is already getting spooked. He calms it down. He's like, you're just making it nervous. He said, you just got to have confidence. Get up there and go. I don't know how to ride this horse. So I get up there, and this damn horse, he lets go, and it's bucking. I mean, it's just bucking. Up and down, it's running as fast as it can. I have no control over this horse. Somehow, some way, I managed to stay on this horse. And while I'm bucking, Kenny's laughing. He ain't coming and trying to grab the reins. He ain't trying to save me. He's laughing, thinking it's funny. Well, eventually, I rode the horse. I never fell off. But once he took a break from hopping so high, I ended up jumping off before I got killed. And I don't know if the horse just got tired out or what, but that is the only time. That was evil, what he was doing.
I can relate to a very similar situation. However, my reaction was very different than Kenny's. My daughter was about 7 or 8 years old, and she was on a horse for riding lessons. And I was standing on the sidelines watching when all of a sudden her horse had a bad interaction with another horse on the other side of the fence. And her horse started bucking. It went up on its back 2 legs and it took off. I mean, full sprint. My heart stopped and I was yelling for help. I was running along the side of the fence for someone to help her. I could just see the fear in her eyes, and I was so scared for her safety. I was not laughing. I wasn't just standing there. I was in full panic mode, wanting to get my daughter off the horse into safety.
But at that time, Kenny's like, man, I can't believe you rode that horse. He's like, that was good. But he kind of praised me a little bit. So then I kind of forgot. I'm like, all right, cool. Maybe he'll lay off me now that he thinks I can ride these horses. Maybe he'll be cool with me now. So I think that was another setup from the beginning to me getting on it. I feel like that was all just one big setup. He knew that horse was going to buck on me because it bucked on him later on when he rode it and stuff. Another little story about these horses is he asked me if I'd help him put up this electric fence. And I said, yeah, I'll help you. So we're putting up this electric fence. The fence was originally off. Well, at some point in time, he turned it on while it was in my hand.
No.
I don't know if you ever been hit by an electric fence. If it's turned up like a good cattle electric fence, it'll light you up. It'll light an adult up. And I was a kid, so that was 10 times worse than me.
He turned it on when you were holding it?
Yeah, it was in my hands. I was like pulling it tight so we could get it stretched around all these fences and stuff. And yeah, he lit me up, pissed me off. Did it kill me? No. Was it messed up? Yeah. I was done. I went in the house. I didn't care if Mom was mad or not. I said, Mom, that fence was zapped me. And I said, I'm done. And I didn't care if I was getting in trouble or not. Still to this day, I cannot stand getting zapped. If I'm working on a Christmas light, trying to fix it, whatever, and it zaps me, it pisses me clean off. Like, still to this day, I'm scared of it.
What was Kenny doing when you got zapped? Where was he?
He was in the barn. So what I think he did was he walked over in the barn and flipped the switch on because there's this little panel that was inside the barn so you could turn the fence on and off. Well, it was originally off because I was working the fence, pulling it tight, getting it hooked into the hooks and working my way around. And then just out of nowhere, it lights me up. The fence wouldn't have done that unless he turned it on.
And then did he come and see you? Did you see him at all?
Oh, he heard me. He said, what happened? I said, that fence. I said, it zapped me. And he laughed. He said, well, how'd that get turned on? Laughed about it and went on about his business.
He didn't come check you out? Nothing?
No, I mean, it didn't do anything other than just shock the piss out of me.
How old were you?
I'm probably like 12 now, 10, 12. I'm under 13. I know that. So here's another thing that I can remember that he did. He had this air rifle. It was a BB gun. And he would have it out by the back door or whatever. I don't know if he just got it or what, but if you didn't have anything in it, you could pump it up and squeeze the trigger and it'd pop air at you. That's all it would do. It wouldn't. If there was nothing in it, it couldn't hurt you. Well, he was acting like he was going to shoot my mom with it and stuff.
Oh, my God.
And I didn't like that. Mom took it as him playing, you ain't going to shoot me. And I wouldn't push him about it. He probably would. Well, one day, I'm out in the yard, and I see him with it. He just goes, run.
Just imagine this for a second. The fear that Dustin had and still has when he recalls this incident. Kenny likes to play these games of hurting kids intentionally. Remember when he told the dog to sick Harrison and laughed as the dog chased him and attacked him? What kind of person sits back, laughs, and finds it funny to hurt children?
And he just lights me up with it. And I don't know if it was plastic ones or metal ones. I don't know. But it got me good. I mean, even if I took that today, it still hurt like hell. Kenny was starting to take over the phones to where I couldn't talk to my dad. And if I talked to my dad, I would get in trouble for talking to my dad. You're here to see your mom, not talk to your dad. My dad would call me in the mornings to check on me. He'd call me before he went to bed, make sure I was okay because all these things was going on. There's little psychological things. There's him yelling. There's him getting pissed off, busting the house up, throwing boots at me. Let me get back to the phone. So my dad would call and check on me. Well, I'd tell Dad, I'm getting in trouble for talking to you. He didn't care. He's like, I'm going to talk to you. Well, Kenny would hide the phones and do all this and that. So me and Dad started doing this thing where he would ring it once and hang up. And then he would wait by the phone, and he knew I would hear that because I would wait for it to talk to my dad because I missed him. So Dad, he would ring the phone once, and I would try to go get the phone and run back into my room to call him. Well, Kenny would do anything he could to stop that from happening. He would smash the phones. He would cut the damn wires. Back then you had the wires that would plug into the phone sets and stuff, and he'd cut them or hide the phone. He would do whatever he could to keep me away from my dad.
Mackenzie also stopped calling Donald, and this is a red flag to me because 2 nights before she was murdered, she did not call Donald to say their nightly prayers, which she always did. I have to wonder if she was not allowed to give Donald a call.
So I remember that. I was always having to sneak around. I just didn't even want to be around him, so I didn't feel safe in my room. One of the only places I felt safe was the bathroom. I knew he wouldn't come into the bathroom as long as I was in there. We had different bathrooms too. So I would carry my TV into the bathroom and put it on the toilet and plug it in. And I would sit in the bathtub as long as I could. Just have the TV on so I couldn't hear him and so I could be away from him.
What was your mom doing during this whole time? This is escalating. Is he becoming physical with her?
There was yelling. There would be him popping off. But most of the time, he did not do that around me. He would do it when I was gone. And I think the reason is because my mom and dad still had contact. He knew my dad would come after him. I forgot to tell you. I was at Dad's, and Kenny was gone. Let's say it was Friday night. Kenny was gone. Don't know where he went. Don't know what he did. And come Saturday, Kenny's got these hogs. My dad calls me sometime the next day. He said, let me talk to your mom. I said, okay. My dad tells my mom that Kenny just stole these hogs. And pisses my mom off. Kenny ain't out there stealing no hogs. He went and got them this way or something. You know, I don't know exact conversation. Kenny just went and stole these hogs. He said, you stay away from them. And he said, don't be surprised if the cops come or whatever. But he stole these hogs and he knew he was wanted. So he went and hid them at this farm in Stanton. And I think he ended up getting away with it. I knew he was scared. I knew he was in trouble. I don't know if that was a time where Mike bailed him out again. I don't know because I was back out of the situation so quick because I was only there Friday through Saturday at this time and Wednesday for a couple hours. That might even been gone by now too because I remember the longer it went, the further I got away from my mom because my dad was saving me. He was getting me out of the situation. So many things had happened. But I can only remember the major ones, you know, but it's constant hell. I blocked so much out. This is the last day Kenny was with my mom. So it's Christmas Eve. I believe it is 2004. I was between 13 and 14, I believe. So I was at my dad's Christmas Eve. He was going to take me to mom's for Christmas morning. I get there, I go in, it's Christmas. I'm pretty happy, you know, it's Christmas. And Kenny's not there. So I don't say anything about opening presents. I wait around, you know, do whatever. Undo my backpack, pull my clothes, whatever. I said, Mom, when's Kenny going to get here so we can open presents? And Mom said, Kenny's gone. I said, what do you mean he's gone? And she said, he's gone for good this time. And I said, Mom, I don't need Christmas. I said, this is great. I was so happy because he was finally gone. I said, do you mean it? I said, for good? She said, yeah, he's gone for good. And so we went about Christmas, and he was gone. Well, he ends up coming back sometime in the middle of the night, some night, and miraculously, one horse ends up dying. And then about a week or two later, this other horse died.
Just like that?
Yep, just like that. And they wasn't sick. They wasn't starving. They wasn't doing nothing. He poisoned them. And Mom did call him. She said, King, these horses are dead. You need to come out here and do something about them. She said, I can't go out there and dig a grave for them. These horses are huge. He let them sit out there and balloon up and explode. I mean, these horses, Mom ended up having to go get a tarp and put over them. And she's trying to call people to find. She don't know who to call. This is before, you get on your phone, just Google something. And finally, he did come and bury these horses, but they was done rotting them and falling apart. The whole place stank up. He came and poisoned them horses.
Now, tell me how you would know that.
Well, this is another one of them things that my dad told me. I don't know how my dad knew this stuff and how he found it out so quick, but he was always right about it. Like I told you, my dad was friends with the cops and stuff. Not Mike Stiegel, but with a lot of other ones.
I wonder how he knew that.
My dad knew everybody. My dad knew when Kenny stole them hogs, and they was stolen. I mean, my dad knew. By next morning, Dad knew.
So when you say hogs, are you meaning pigs or motorcycles?
No, pigs.
He stole pigs?
Yeah.
So he leaves Christmas, right?
Yes.
Is this when he leaves for Marianne in 2004?
Yes. Donald had figured out he was cheating on Mom with Marianne at this time.
So he left, and then after that point, all of a sudden, these two healthy horses die.
Yes.
What did your mom think when she found out he was with Marianne?
I forgot to mention the week right before these horses end up dying. Sometime like within that week, he was at the house and stole Mom's stuff. Mom was boxing things back up because she knew she was losing the house because she couldn't pay for it on her own. And she still had Lewis Street to pay for, plus this ranch. So Mom's like, you need to come in and get your stuff. And he waited till she was gone. He come in and stole a bunch of stuff that wasn't his. Stuff that he knew was my mom's. And this is in the same time, like the same week or 2 weeks that these horses end up dying too. So it kind of all tied together.
Do you know with the horses, do you know if your dad said or anyone has said they were okay one day and then the next day did they both die at the same time?
No, they died about a few days or maybe a week apart.
And they just collapsed?
Yep, collapsed right down in the field. I did not see them collapse, but I was at Mom's one day. They was fine up running around. I'd go out and feed them, water them. And then next time, one of them, the big brown one, his name was Biggin, he's down on the ground, dead. And my dad's telling my mom, you need to do something. You're going to get the law called on you for animal abuse. You need to get this horse buried. And before Mom could even get the first one buried, the second one died too. And these was good, healthy horses. These wasn't sick horses. These wasn't nothing wrong with them. They was good, strong, healthy horses.
That's interesting. Do you ever see him again?
Yes, I do. I've seen him maybe 3 or 4 times after he left.
After Mackenzie?
Yes. He comes to Mom's, and he told my mom about the house fire. Now, I wasn't there when he pulled in. I come to Mom's, and he's there. And I'm like, what are you doing here? I'm pissed. I didn't know of the fire at this time. I know he's here, and I want him gone. I'm like, what are you doing here? And I'm starting to run my mouth like, you ain't got no right to be here. You need to go. And Mom's like, chill. He's all right. I said, so what are you doing here? And he's like, well, and that's when he started retelling the story about the fire happening. Oh, I forgot to tell you something. Kenny was a volunteer firefighter.
Yeah, so tell me about that. What do you know about that? Because I heard he wasn't really.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. He was a pretend. He tried to be a volunteer firefighter or whatever. Now, it was with Concord Green Fire Department. It's a volunteer fire department. Now, Kenny, before, he always talked about how he was this firefighter and, you know, he had several jobs because he couldn't keep a job. So, supposedly his license ended. He had this radio, and every once in a while he would go out. I just wonder if he was going out to cheat, because at the same time he's talking about he didn't have his license no more. And then later on, he was trying to get his license again or whatever. And the first time I never seen him have no gear. I just seen him have a little radio. But later on, he did end up getting gear. And I don't know if you got to make so many runs or whatever to get your license, but he did start going out. I maybe seen him go out 5 times, 10 max.
You have seen him go out on calls where he is dressed to go fight a fire.
Not dressed, but he's got gear in the back of his black GMC. But he said he did. You know, the radio would go off and he'd jump up, act all macho, I got to go to this fire, and he'd take off. But, I mean, I don't know where he went. But he was trying to get his license again. So he was supposedly this big-time firefighter, all right. So he told me about the fire, and I felt bad because I didn't know what happened. I started off. I said, did you put it out? I feel terrible about saying that now because I didn't know what happened. I was just trying to be shitty to him. I was trying to piss him off so he would go. And then that's when he told me that Mackenzie had died. And I felt really bad about it, and I chilled out, and I let him talk. Well, supposedly the reason why he was there, he took the dog that we had. His name was Storm. He took Storm when he left Mom. He come to Mom's. He said, you know, we're going to have to get a hotel in Jeffersonville, I believe. And we're going to have to get this hotel, and the hotel ain't going to allow dogs in. And he asked Mom, could you watch the dogs? And Mom said, yeah. And he said, okay, well, I might do that. So that was one time that I'd seen him.
So when he left your mom for Mary Ann, why would he come to your mom's the next day after the fire?
I know. This had been some time. He just showed up out of the blue.
Right. And I'm wondering why.
I don't know. I don't know why he did it.
Did he seem upset about Mackenzie's death?
No. He was just telling another story like he always did.
There was no, oh my God, she died in the fire. We tried to get out. We couldn't save her.
Yeah, I mean, but he wasn't crying. He wasn't getting choked up. He was emotionless. He was just telling it like you would tell a bullshit story to somebody. Just bullshitting with another guy about something that happened. That was it. There was no sad emotions to it.
Wow.
My mom was more upset than he was.
Did he say what he think happened, or did he give you a story about trying to save her?
No, he did not give any little to no detail whatsoever. He just said that there was this fire. He tried getting her out, but the fire was so bad that he couldn't. I remember him strictly saying this. He goes, now, you know, that had to be a bad fire for me not to get her out, you know, and he had to bring up that he was this firefighter again.
So he did say he tried to.
Yeah, he said he did. That's all he really said. It was real short. It was just like how you just repeated it to me. There was this fire. It was real bad, which, you know, couldn't get it out. I tried getting her. But I remember him specifically saying, that had to be a real bad fire for me not to be able to get her out. Like he was making a point to say that.
After I wrapped up my conversation with Dustin, I just sat back and had to take a few deep breaths. Kenny had abused Dustin when he was living with them and then took these same punishments to Mackenzie, Harrison, and Douglas. The amount of physical and emotional abuse that Kenny inflicted on other women's kids is beyond disgusting. As a mother, the idea of all of the suffering this man, if he can be called that, has inflicted on innocent children just fuels me with rage that becomes an eventual determination to solve this case on behalf of all of these children. So, of course, we're not done yet. I got on the phone with Donald and he told me more about the situation that Dustin had mentioned to me about Kenny abusing young children that he eventually got arrested for.
I'll tell you what, I had a woman, it was his ex. She contacted me right after the fire happened and stuff, and she said, man, you need to check into Kenny. I'm telling you, you need to look into Kenny. And I said, why? She said, get a hold of South Dakota, the state of South Dakota, and you'll find out why. Well, I contacted South Dakota and found out that he beat a kid 2 years old for peeing the bed, severely beat this kid, and then told the cop in the cop car why he did it. And they arrested him. He never got really charged for it. Instead, what the state of South Dakota did was they told him he had to leave the state and could never live there again in the state of South Dakota. Well, I told the fire marshal about it. They flew to South Dakota and got a copy of that whole entire report, which I have that report too, a copy of it.
The abuse of this infant was so horrible, I am told the cops stopped the car and threw up on the side of the road after hearing Kenny talk about what he did in the back of the squad car. You know it has to be really bad for the state of South Dakota to say, hey, you're not welcome back here. According to the court documents, Kenny pleaded not guilty to this charge and it was taken to civil court. He then paid $2,000 bond. What I'm told is that Stiegel came to South Dakota and picked Kenny up and brought him back to Ohio to prevent any further issues. To my knowledge, but really satisfaction, Kenny has never faced any true consequences for his behaviors or actions. Imagine this, if Kenny actually faced charges of child abuse, maybe the rest of the kids that he hurt after 1998 would have been saved from torture and Mackenzie would still be alive. But here's just another example of what Kenny has gotten away with.
He had 9 DUIs. Kenny has 9 DUIs and still has a CDL and got into a truck accident where he killed the other person. And never done nothing. No time. Nothing. And has 9 DUIs.
Wow. Such an injustice here. Such an injustice of just incompetence and cover-up. I mean, it's, we're a small town and we can do what we want. Nope, sorry, you can't. Dustin also had mentioned to me that Kenny had a problem with drinking and driving and he would do it all the time. But again, no consequences ever came to him. Kenny doesn't seem to know what it is like to face consequences. He's gotten away with so much in his life. Why wouldn't he think he could get away with setting a fire? I mean, after all, his brother-in-law was on the force and had saved his ass many times before. Now, where do we go from here? Well, we have to keep digging. We heard firsthand accounts from Harrison, Dustin, and Donald on the abuse that the children received when they were with them. Marianne and Kenny did not protect their kids from harm, but actually inflicted it over and over again. We need to now look into the other 2 remaining people that were in that home that night of the fire. It's now time for us to dig into William and Jamie Potter. next time on Dog with a Bone.
Did William sexually abuse Mackenzie?
I want to say it was just us three, my mom's kids, me, Mackenzie, and Dougie. But he would make us all like kiss and lick each other's chest, even his. All three of us and him. He would make us take turns licking each other's boobs, I would put it.
Yeah.
And everything, even his.
Dog with a Bone is hosted by Melissa Sandberg, investigated, produced, and written by Melissa Sandberg. Additional writing by Caitlin Sandberg. Edited by Jason Sandberg. Mixed and mastered by Morrow Mixing and Mastering. Theme music by Alex Yukich. Dog with a Bone is a Sasquatch production.